Is the banking collapse going to get worse, and is it only really started? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. I have some very important updates coming out of Peter Schiff. Deutsche Bank is getting the wobbles, and also the Fed is having secret meetings because emergencies are happening behind the scenes, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. So let's get straight into it. Peter Schiff is predicting more bailouts are coming down the pike. So Peter Schiff, if you guys don't know him, he's a very good economist. He's made some really good predictions, and one thing he is getting right a lot of the time is just how insolvent some of these banks are. And he says right here, this is the result of a dozen years of 0% interest rates and quantitative easing. The Federal Reserve created the first financial crisis with artificially low interest rates, and the current financial crisis is actually even worse because it kept interest rates even lower for longer. And I 100% agree with Peter Schiff, and he says right here, I think what happens next, unfortunately, is more bailouts. We've already bailed out several banks and their large depositors. The President of the United States is pretending that this doesn't cost anybody any money. It's going to cost everybody because inflation is the way we're paying for this. And if you guys don't understand exactly what Peter Schiff means right there, I want to show you this next graph. So this is the US national debt clock. It is going through the roof. It is heading towards $32 trillion. If you guys think the US is bankrupt right now, hit the thumbs up button because you're probably correct. And if you guys want to stay up to date on these banking collapse videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel and keep you guys fully up to date. Very new channel right here. But what you have to understand is when the government doesn't have money, so like, you know, they can't tax people officially through raising income taxes, what actually ends up happening is they just go to their friends. Joe Biden just says, print me, you know, $1 trillion. That gets printed out, and that goes all to the banks and other groups, you know, that are in cahoots with the government, and then the inflation gets pushed up. So if you're an average hardworking person in the United States or anywhere around the West right now, what you're going to be feeling is the burn of inflation with your money. So you're going to the shops, your dollars aren't going very far. They don't go very far because the government's basically printing out so much money, and it's deflating exactly, and it's really crushing your purchasing power. And Peter Schiff is 100% right there. And he also says here, everybody's bank account is now at greater risk than ever. Maybe not because your bank is going to fail because the government is not allowing that to happen, but because everybody's bank account is going to lose value. Inflation is going to destroy the value of everybody's savings. So these banking collapses, even though the Fed has been intervening, even though the Fed is having secret meetings right now that we'll talk about soon, what's actually happening is all this government intervention is actually pushing up the prices of everything. It's guaranteeing money. So really it's just more money printing, more liquidity into the market, and they're not letting the free market actually, you know, determine the dynamics. So there's no incentive for these banks to even, you know, run less risky operations because the government's coming in basically guaranteeing it, which is absolutely insane. And he goes on to say right here, remember these large banks are able to take their treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, which have depreciated dramatically because they were foolish enough to invest when interest rates were at all-time record lows. So they're able to take some paper that maybe is worth 70 cents and just give it to the Federal Reserve in exchange for $1. And then they're taking some of the windfall and depositing it into other banks. So the whole thing is a bailout in disguise. And again, the bag holder is the American public. They get the bill in the form of higher prices. So again, Peter Schiff, 100% right here. He is absolutely crushing it in the mainstream news. But again, you know, is this going to fall on the deaf ears of the mainstream media? I think it will. So the mainstream media don't really listen to Peter Schiff. You're not going to find videos like this in the mainstream media where I'm basically telling you guys the 100% truth of what's happening in the economy. But this is literally, you know, the realistic scenario about why this is getting worse, why inflation is getting worse, and why these guys basically just looked for bailouts. And one of the next big banks to potentially collapse, people are talking about it, is Deutsche Bank. And panic is spreading, but you can see from the headline right here from CNBC, carefully crafted headline, it says Deutsche Bank is not the next Credit Suisse, analyst says, as panic spreads. So they're definitely trying to downplay some of the jitters in the banking sector at the moment. So they don't want the banking sector to collapse because that's bad for you know, a lot of powerful groups out there. They like these big banks. They absorb lots of money, pay lots of profits, And they don't want to see this sector go down, but right now the banks are taking on way too much risk. A lot of them are insolvent, and a lot of them are losing money, and a lot of them are getting bailed out by central banks, which are effectively, you know, backed by taxpayer dollars to some degree. So the banking panic is getting worse. The banks are collapsing, and things are looking bleaker and bleaker in the banking sector. And have a look at this. Nearly 100 billion in deposits pulled from banks. Officials call system sound and resilient. So is it really sound and resilient if the US government has to intervene, if the Swiss government has to intervene, or is this just trying to, like, you know, quell the storm because they know a lot of the things in the banking sector are pretty dodgy right now, to say the absolute least. And you guys can see right here from Zero Hedge, it says the Fed is pushing the accelerator and the brakes at the same time. So what do they mean by that? So on one hand, you are seeing the Fed increasing interest rates, okay? So you guys can see it. They put out the big announcements. They're tough on interest rates. They keep jacking up the interest rates, but at the same time, they're injecting like $398 billion worth of credit into the system. So, you know, the interest rate increases are getting netted off by the credit injections. So if they were really walking the talk, they wouldn't be injecting so much liquidity into the system. They would just be letting the interest rates rise, but they're not going to do that, of course. They're going to, you know, look for central bailouts and things like that. And this is what Peter Schiff is talking about. So the economic collapse is getting worse. Just be very cautious with banks, and not financial advice on the channel. This is just news. This is just my opinion only. And stay safe. If you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel. I want some subscribers on this channel, and hit the like button as well if you got value out of this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.